If you're navigating a difficult relationship with emotionally immature parents, you're going to learn in this video what is the one thing you need to stop doing with your parents. If you've ever walked away from a conversation with your parents feeling drained, exhausted, misunderstood, or you feel like you're still being treated like a child despite being an adult, if you want a healthier relationship with your parents, one where you feel respected, heard, and emotionally safe, you're not alone in the struggle. I've definitely been there before. And today I'm going to show you exactly what to stop doing that keeps you stuck in these painful cycles. Here's the problem. Maybe interactions with your emotionally immature parents is often filled with criticism, defensiveness, or emotional withdrawal that leaves you walking on eggshells. These interactions make you feel confused, guilty, and responsible for their emotions, and you doubt yourself and your reality. You question it and wondering if you're the problem. And adults like us, we deserve to have healthy boundaries and authentic relationships with our parents, right? No one should have to shrink themselves or sacrifice their emotional well-being to maintain family connections or to keep the peace in your family. Okay, here's the biggest mistake. Here is the one thing you must stop doing with your parents, and that is trying to change their behavior, trying to change your parents, and we need to stop seeking validation from people who simply can't give it to us. And what makes emotionally immature parents emotionally immature is that they can be lacking empathy and they're not very good at validating your emotional experience. I understand firsthand how painful these cycles can be because I spent a lot of my years, a lot of anger, resentment, and I spent a lot of my years, like most of my teenage years, my 20s, where I tried almost everything to get my parents to understand me, right? Get them to change, right? And it often led me to feel more frustrated and hurt with each attempt. As an emotional intelligence expert and an inner child healing coach, I've helped 100 of clients and students really navigate these challenging relationships with their parents and other emotionally immature adults. And I've identified specific patterns that keep people stuck, and also the healing transformative shifts that creates emotional freedom. And it's through guiding them on their inner journey, helping them transform through my 4-step butterfly method, where they begin not just break free from these cycles, and they begin to empower themselves as emotionally mature adults. So you can't change your parents, but as you change, you have greater influence on your parents, and they might change too. And then they may not. They may not change ever. Okay. So here's a 3-step process how you can stop trying to change your parents, right? Stop taking over responsibility for their behaviors, their actions, their words, and how to stop seeking external validation that they either can't give, they don't know how to give, or they don't want to. Okay, so here are these 3 steps. First step, stop the validation seeking cycle. This is easier said than done. Hear me out. So this is the first step, and it's just to recognize and stop seeking validation from parents who simply aren't equipped to provide it. And here's what this validation seeking cycle looks like. So it might be oversharing your accomplishments, hoping for praise. It might be repeatedly explaining your feelings, hoping they'll finally understand, or changing yourself to win their approval. This creates the painful cycle, right? Because emotionally immature parents often respond with dismissal, criticism, or making it about themselves. So instead of seeking validation from them, Start building a validation practice with yourself. Learn to self-validate, right? Good job, right? And have relationships with other emotionally mature people who can provide you with the validation that we all need. Remember, your parents' inability to validate you isn't a reflection of your self-worth. It's a reflection of their emotional limitations. The second step, which is to create boundaries that protect your emotional well-being without creating more conflict. Here's where many people make a big mistake. So cutting off communication can be mistaken as setting a boundary, but true boundaries are about changing how you engage, not if you engage. So for example, right, when your parents criticize your career choices, instead of defending yourself, try this. Mom, Dad, I appreciate your concern. I'm confident in my decisions, and I'm not looking for advice in this area. And when they try to pull you back into the family drama, these old painful patterns, use this boundary statement. I care about you. Mom, Dad, I love you. I respect you, but I need to step back from the situation. I'm happy to talk about something else. The key to not just speaking your boundaries once, the key to maintaining your boundaries is consistency and calm. And this is going to be hard practice, right? Don't justify, don't argue, don't defend, and don't explain your boundaries. Practice these statements, responses ahead of time. That's why in my community, me and my students, we have communication workshops where I make them scripts, we role play, we rehearse. So practice what you're going to say before you get triggered, before these challenging moments, so you can do it when it's happening, right? So please remember, boundaries aren't about controlling their behavior, right? They're about controlling your participation in unhealthy dynamics. Third step, shifting from reaction to response. And what I mean here is that the final step to these three-step process in developing your ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally is this. When we're triggered, our inner child, our wounded inner child comes out and we age regress. We often revert back to childhood response patterns that we learned. People-pleasing, shutting down, emotional outbursts. So instead, use this pause, breathe, choose technique. First, notice when you're triggered and pause before responding. And then take 3 deep breaths, feeling your feet on the ground to bring yourself back to your adult self. And then the next step, consciously choose your response from a place of self-respect rather than emotional reactivity. This might mean excusing yourself from a conversation, changing the subject, or simply acknowledging their perspective without agreeing. The goal isn't perfect responses. It's creating space between trigger and response so you can act from your centered adult self rather than from your wounded inner child. And with practice, this takes a lot of practice, this becomes easier, like all things. And you'll find yourself feeling empowered rather than emotionally hijacked in these interactions. By the way, if you're ever ready to change these relationships between you and your parents and other emotionally immature adults, I want to invite you to take my Inner Journey course, where I'll help you master setting boundaries without the guilt, help you discover emotional regulation tools that helps calm your nervous system, and how can you have your cake and eat it too? How can you be your most authentic self while maintaining these family relationships? You can learn more, link in the description below. Because continuing these painful patterns doesn't just affect your relationship with you and your parents. It actually spills out in all areas of your life. And you might be realizing this by now. And please share in the comments if any of these consequences from these unhealed wounds are happening to you and in your life. Like, let me know if you find yourself repeating these patterns, these same unhealthy dynamics in other relationships, friends, partner, with your colleagues, with your manager, right? And let me know, if there's this internal critic, right, shaped by these experiences, right, from your past, how you might have been treated with your parents, how you engage with your parents, if this inner critic limits your potential. And maybe you're noticing the emotional energy drain by these interactions, and this will rob you of your vitality that's needed in life's pursuits, right? And let me know if you're experiencing, that these unresolved pains increases anxiety, people pleasing, and it's hard for you to even trust yourself. And I think the most painful part, without addressing these patterns, we risk passing them down onto our own children and in our most important relationships. And it doesn't have to be this way, because I've been there, right? Instead, imagine walking away from family gatherings, a phone call, interaction with your parents, feeling peaceful, feeling calm, regardless of how they behaved. Picture yourself responding with calm clarity when old triggers arise, rather than being pulled into familiar drama. Imagine, right? Envision building a genuine connection with your parents based on who you are, based on both of you, who you actually are, not who you wish they could be. I've worked with many clients and students, and a lot of other Asian American students, and one of them, she was this badass lawyer living in Vancouver. She was raised single mom. Her dad passed away years ago. Even though she was successful as a lawyer, she was struggling with her mom, right? My client had poor boundaries. She would get eaten up by her mom's guilt trips, her mom's silent treatments, and she really felt like she couldn't have a social life because she had to go over to her mom's place for dinner every day. If she doesn't, her mom gets worried. Her mom constantly checks up on her. Her mom is too worried to let her travel. So eventually she was like, okay, something's got to give. I'm beginning to feel so resentful towards my mom. I feel so stressed out and anxious, and I'm neglecting my friendships. And I don't have a romantic life because I am just so exhausted dealing with my mom. So we started working together, and I really helped her connect with herself again, her needs, her emotions, and she was healing the wounded little girl inside. And as she began to heal, and as she learned how to set boundaries without the guilt, she was feeling empowered, more confident, and actually her relationship with her mom improved. Even though she was setting boundaries with her mom, even though she wasn't going to dinner every night, she had more of a say in her life, things eventually did get better between the two of them. This isn't just about changing the relationship that you have with your parents. It's about reclaiming your authentic self and creating the emotional freedom that you deserve. When you stop these patterns, you don't only heal yourself, but you become a cycle breaker for many future generations to come. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'm so proud of you. Keep on growing.